It saddens me that I cannot recommend this game at the moment, because it is evident that this single developer has put a lot of time and effort into the project, and because this is a game made by one person, we are of course going in with the right expectations. Let's start with a quick explanation of what this game is, and then take a look at the things I liked and didn't like so far. This is a survival RPG, set in a medieval open world. The game combines medieval strategy, survival and fantasy elements. There are both single player and multiplayer modes. The game does not yet have a villager AI system, where you can recruit people and assign them tasks, but it is in the works. However, I would not expect a fully working system anytime soon. Currently, a big chunk of the gameplay is expanding your crafting possibilities, which is pretty fun. Building and decorating your castle or house, and fighting enemies. There are optional quests, but you can play the game at your own leisure. Now, I have to say, the beginning of the game was by far the most frustrating part. This started with gathering resources. Some basic resources are scattered so unevenly across the map that you can easily run around for 15 minutes without finding a single piece of fiber, for instance, which in most games is a basic resource, and then you will suddenly come across a tiny place that has a ton of it, but then you are out of luck again for the next 10 to 15 minutes. This would make sense to me if it only grows in certain biomes, but if the game has biomes, they certainly don't look distinct enough to spot them. The next part are invisible walls. These are, to some extent, accepted in games, but here you really cannot tell where you can and cannot go. Invisible walls will totally show up at spots where you absolutely would expect to be able to just normally walk. It drastically lowers the joy when finding cool locations, only to realize that you cannot even go there. The game, unfortunately, doesn't seem to have spatial or positional audio. If anything is chasing you, for example, you cannot tell how far away or from which direction it's coming. You will likely get a heart attack, because a wolf approaching from 20 meters away will sound like it's right next to you.
Moving!
Dying is pretty frustrating here. Your entire inventory will be dropped, and you have 15 minutes to collect it. The game tends to respawn you at the other side of the map. It also happens that your death bag simply isn't there, even if you make it there in time. Your base also isn't marked or visible on the map, and I haven't found a way to place custom markers, given how similar the environment looks. You may have a hard time finding your base. Exploring at night is close to impossible, because you can't really see further than your own feet. I am totally fine with games making nights actually dark, but when you have a light source, you really should see at least a bit further. This does get better once you have a base with a campfire, but exploring during the night is not enjoyable, because you can't make out any resources, or anything for that matter. Now, animations could be off-putting for some players, but I personally don't mind them. It gives off an old school vibe, and feels a bit nostalgic. Now, I could name more things that hindered my enjoyment, but I also want to mention some stuff that I found enjoyable. I did, for example, not find combat to be as terrible as some other players. I think the impact feeling and sound effects are decent. I also enjoyed the building aspect, and most of the time it works pretty well. Everything snaps together properly, and from what I have seen, you can build massive structures here. The music in the game is very good. It is unfortunate it doesn't play often. It is also worth mentioning that you can go into first person mode, which surely some players will appreciate. In the end, the conclusion here has to be that this game needs much more time to cook, and if it gets that time and dedication, then this can turn into a real gem. I genuinely like all the craftable items that you can unlock, and all the details on that stuff. The setting of the game is great, but I fear that many people will find it too bare bones at the moment, and that this will reflect in the reviews once the game launches next week. As always, I tried to keep this as short as possible. If you think your time was respected, then a like is appreciated, my friends.